When we talk about China, we've been talking about China for 8 years. One of the things that we constantly run into are people who have these concepts or misconceptions about China that date back to the way China was 60s and the 70s. They even go back to times back in Tiananmen Square, which is over 30 years ago. And they seem to revert back to that. So some people say, well, do you need to smuggle Bibles into China? Well, China is the country that actually publishes and prints more Bibles than any country in the world. You can go into China today and you can buy a Bible for $1. I've bought several Bibles there, both Mandarin and English. And so that's not the issue anymore in China. That's not something that you have to worry about. Another misconception is concepts surrounding how you're viewed in terms of your faith and the government and all of that. And there's a lot of misconceptions. People will read articles that are published in China about this thing or that thing. And when we go there, when we work and travel throughout the country, we don't see those things. And so there's also this concept of this constant persecution that happens. And what we realize is, and this is something that people don't really like to hear, but there are certain organizations that survive or exist mainly on the propagation of these myths. And so they have to continue to propagate that myth in order to sustain themselves as an organization. And so they continue to propagate that. And I think of a story where I was in Texas telling about what we're doing in China in terms of our leadership development. And a Chinese guy came in and he laid down all these pictures on the table about Tiananmen Square. And one of our Chinese staff came and said, why do you have these pictures here? And he said, well, it's Tiananmen Square. And she is in her 20s. And she said, well, that was before I was born. She said, so why are we putting that there? And again, I realized really quickly that he was putting that there because his own ministry was dependent on people's fear of China. And so he was going to propagate that. But when I talked to the Chinese there, again, some of them weren't even around when some of those things happened.